Welcome everyone to the Gamemode Creative podcast. I am Meg, and joining me is fellow Minecrafter Rainboom.
Hi.
Welcome.
Indeed.
How's your week been?
Oh, wow. I think I've had so much, especially since the last episode we released. There has been a great deal of things that have taken place, but, well, let's speak in terms of Minecraft, because I think that's what we're probably going to mostly come back to anyway, as we typically have. I started a new survival world with my siblings, and we did some 118. And tell you, though, it feels like it's much harder than it should be, because we are people that we don't usually play survival. Like, the last time we would have played has been many months ago. So coming to see 118, especially all those dark caves, has been extremely thrilling, I think, for us. I mean, we've discussed this, Meg, too. Like, some of those caves are crazy, like the generation, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Are you enjoying survival, though?
It is.
As a change of pace from creative?
I think so. It's just that idea of now I have sort of these terrain constraints. If I wanted to try to build something, maybe there's a bit of inspiration, say if there's a really cool structure or a village that I kind of want to upgrade or something. So it kind of gives me some inspiration to work on, or maybe have certain build projects or something. So, that might be pretty fun that way.
Yeah, that could be a podcast topic in and of itself, couldn't it?
It might be, yeah, true. A little more Minecraft specific, but hey, that's kind of what we kind of suggest. But how about you, Meg? How's your week been?
It's been going good. I feel like I haven't been doing as much in Minecraft lately, but I've just had a lot of things on my mind, I guess.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of different things.
That's all right. But content's been coming out. I saw some that has been churned out.
I still have content coming out, but maybe just not as much as I usually do.
That's fair. But no, sounds pretty good. But I'd realized we do have a fun topic that you listening will probably want to try to hear our thoughts on and kind of ponder upon yourself as well. So, Meg, I guess take it away.
Okay, so I wanted to discuss what defines quality, and especially in the context of what you hear many people say, quality or quantity, or quality is, but usually people say quality over quantity.
The age-old question.
But I'm curious, what exactly is quality, and how would we define that?
That is a very interesting question, yes. I'm giving the effect of silence just to give, that pondering state, just so that, you makes it look like I'm thinking about it, and probably you listening are thinking about it too. So, yeah, Meg, in case you're wondering where we went to, that's kind of what happened. We just disappeared for a brief moment just to kind of make it think. But no, let's see, because, a lot of people would say that, I mean, for me, my first leading would be quality, just because, you'd want a quality piece of content, whether it's a build or a video or something, over numerous releases and that sort of thing. But were there any kind of guiding questions you had that were, or maybe thoughts you had that might have tied into what quality might be defined as?
Well, not questions for definition, but I was thinking about, what do you usually think of when something is high quality? Do you have anything in mind?
Okay. I
do have some things in mind, but I wanted to ask you first.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, and probably see maybe some of these might relate to you as well, because I know for me it's,
right.
I think the first thing obviously that comes to mind when you're thinking just, and I take this from observing a build, and I'm just going to take builds for this example, where I'm looking at someone's build, and what to me seems like quality is sort of, I think there's an aspect of effort in terms of, how much effort's put into it. Although we could argue and say that, does effort, like more effort, actually equal more quality? There could be different arguments for that. But then you've also got, I'm just listing them off as I go here. There's sort of like even just this aspect of awe and amazement, which also could be like, let's say I look at a build and it's like this fantastic, highly detailed but reasonably detailed build, and it's like, this is amazing. Sort of almost like that wow factor almost makes me think that this is a quality build. And then also even just things like, if I know the pains of going through what it takes to make that particular build, and I have an appreciation for it, seeing it in action, to me it's like, I know for sure that they went and took the time and effort to put this build together, so that to me feels like quality. Now I can probably, there's a lot we can discuss, I'm probably going to go into these more in detail later, but were these kind of along the lines of what you had, Meg, or how did you spin it?
Yeah, I had a lot of the same things, but I was thinking about it more, and this doesn't really necessarily relate to Minecraft, but I was thinking quality, like in the real life sense, when you think of something of quality, usually it's something that lasts a long time, like has longevity. Like when you think of like an object that's high quality, usually it's something that, you know, is going to last a lifetime.
Oh, yeah. Actually, you know, to think about it.
So I thought it was an interesting thought to think about, because something that's not exactly exclusive to like, oh, Minecraft or, I don't know.
Yeah, actually, you know,
there's a lot more aspects to quality than I realized.
I remember that we had a course explicitly about quality, but we're talking industrial quality. And there was one of the first things that we had as a brainstorming item was think of what they call dimensions of quality. And there actually are all these sorts of categories that could define quality. So whether it was from, one of them was longevity or sort of the lifespan or expected lifespan, aesthetics, all sorts of things that would kind of tie into that. Maybe resistance to damage or things of that particular sort.
So I think that can somewhat apply to content creation, even. Like if something like is, I guess, getting attention for a long period of time, it must be a high quality. But I'm going to get into that a little deeper too, a little bit later.
You know, music comes to mind too. Like if somebody was into, like, you know, we sometimes talk about, you know, timeless classics just because they transcend time. They don't really feel like they're stuck into one particular fad. Like, let's say whenever I'm trying to think, whenever disco was hip, or whenever early hip hop, or the, you know, early 2000s music or something like that. But there are just some songs that objectively, or at least, you know, most people seem to just agree are some of the greatest ever written, because they transcend time. You know, it's not like and it's easily, you know, anybody could listen to it, and so that could be perceived as something that is of high quality as well. Before you get to more of that, one thing I also thought of in terms of going to quality over quantity is something that I can pull from broadcasting, because I know, like, from when I do stuff on my radio show, which technically almost is a podcast in itself because it's a weekly program, I tend to want to lean more towards quality, because lately a lot of ours, because of restrictions due to the pandemic, you know, we've had people trying not to come into the studio to do shows live, so a lot of times we're encouraged to record things in advance. But many weeks, over the past few weeks, maybe ever since about I think July or August of this past year, I've been running out of content. So I've been thinking, do I just want to, you know, slap together an episode that's 90 minutes long just for the sake of being able to fill the week's worth of episodes? Or do I want to wait until I actually have something to release that is of quality and then to have it out there? So usually I would lean maybe towards the quality route, because it's something that I can appreciate more and say, hey, I'm actually proud of this, as opposed to just something that I put half the effort into, you know, or something like that. So
now that's interesting, because sometimes I feel like I publish things even if, in my opinion, they're not the best quality. Or when I say quality in that sense, though, usually it would be maybe I'm just not satisfied with it, or fully satisfied with it myself. So maybe that's an aspect of quality too, like
personal satisfaction,
what our standards are.
Yeah, personal standards, or even personal standards are probably very different from, and in fact, there isn't even actually sort of a globally accepted standard anyway. So, you know, it's I guess it all is very subjective when it comes to the standards part. But yeah, I guess it depends on the medium too. Like, I know that I probably could have gone out and done that same thing with my show, where I said, oh, just release this. Maybe I could even just rerun a bunch of things and no one's gonna know. But really, deep down, I know, and then I'll feel ashamed for it, because it's like I've deprived listeners of new content and stuff. So, but I guess I could have done that, but that would be me leaning more quantity than it would be quality. So it kind of comes back to that, me holding myself to my standard, I think, is another thing there. But did you have any remarks regarding you know, who or what could set the standards for quality? I think that might be sort of something else to kind of tie into this whole quality conversation too.
Can you repeat the question?
I guess I was kind of leaning towards, you know, kind of, because standards are subjective. I think maybe we can spin it that way. Just how subjective are the standards for quality, I think, because, you know, you probably look at somebody who is looking, I'm going to take your, let's say your Keras. I'm going to go back to Minecraft, for example. I'm sure that you've got people that have had, have praised you quite so for it. Maybe because they probably have a particular standard of quality. I'm not sure if you've had any other remarks or, maybe not negative comments, but just, or even just people who haven't looked so much into it. I'm trying to think of a good example. It's just that carousel came to mind first, but
I know that I guess everyone would have their own opinion of quality based on what their knowledge is of like what is being presented. So I think people, for the carousel as an example, some people might look at that some people who understand Minecraft building, they would look at that and appreciate the quality of the Minecraft build. Then there are some people who, I've even had someone remark this in a comment, that they appreciated the accuracy as far as the construction of the carousel and like how it was constructed, not necessarily in Minecraft sense, but in the realism of it, I guess. Like
the actual composition of a carousel.
So they appreciated that quality of the build, that attention to detail, I guess, that I stuck in there. So everyone, I guess, can define quality based on whatever their standards are, whatever they're expecting out of it, maybe.
Yeah, perhaps. Then the reason why I was almost stuck, because I think, was that I was thinking there probably are people that have a much higher quality standard of quality, but I don't exactly know how they would interact maybe with, like, say, like a post like the carousel, because I don't even know if they would react. I'm not sure, because I'm sure you haven't received any.
That is true, because you see some people who react to some things that I would never react to just because my standard of quality is much higher, maybe.
Yeah.
So, I don't know.
It could be, actually.
It's very interesting to think about.
Yeah, because there are many ways, and I guess that kind of is looking at how, what kinds of reactions things get. It's really interesting, and I think we almost always talk about this, how, complex builds like the carousel, or builds like what other organic builds you've done, or even some that I've seen, like coming from, if you've been in previous episodes, you'll know that I'm more into city building in Minecraft. I've been looking at inspiration from Minecrafters that have this whole other level of detail that they add to their builds, which is through Blender renders.
I'm just as equally impressed by your things, so
I guess my standard, I probably have my standard way too high for myself, so to me they look pretty mediocre. I'll admit that, just because, but then again, for me, I'm always developing. But no, there are some accounts I've seen that look, they're crazy in a good way, because some of the builds they've done, you look from afar, they don't even look like Minecraft anymore, but it's not like you can't recognize Minecraft. It's like you still know that it was built in Minecraft, yet they've taken it to this whole extra level that just you've never seen it before, and it's something absolutely impressive. It's kind of likened to the rendered version of your carousel, actually, Meg. And if you're listening and you haven't seen this carousel post, you definitely should, just because you're going to see this. It's a whole different dimension of Minecraft to me, I think.
I spent 4 months on it.
So that time came in through, although I'm not sure. I guess that kind of could come back into, would that count as quantity or time or something like that?
Oh, that is something we are going to address a little bit later. I do want to save that one.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I mean, leading up to that then, never mind. That was time. And I was going to go back to that, because that is technically another aspect of quality. But then at the same time, experience would counter that, because let's say somebody who we could say was objectively more experienced could probably put together a quality build in, 1/10 of the time than somebody who was less experienced. So time in that case probably wouldn't be the most relevant. However, it still could be.
I would say that more experience does equal more quality for sure. But it also does depend on like what your standard of quality is, because some people could look at something that someone who doesn't have much experience made and think it's the best thing in the world just because they have no experience. So even if somebody, it's just always looking a step higher. It's like you're always looking up at someone better than you, but you're never going to be at the top. You're always looking up at somebody else who's better than you.
Yeah, or maybe it's just that mindset.
Setting your own standards.
Because I'll bet there also could be, on the contrary, people that might actually be wanting to be of that particular standard. Well, they say, I have to be at the top, or I would like to be at the top, and I will be at the top. And then have that mindset, whether or not there may be quality in their builds, they'll still think that, oh yes, look at this, I've released this and now I'm at the top of it all.
They kind of trick themselves into thinking theirs is of quality.
That is too. Now, nothing against people, obviously, when I say this, but it could be a possible train of thought, and it could end up becoming askew too, because again, it just comes to show how subjective quality is, right? Because their standard might be, somewhere. I'm not sure if it'd be high, maybe medium high, or if there even is a medium for a standard of quality. I don't suppose there's a. I'm gonna just make something up here, like the MegRae scale of quality for Minecraft builds, or something like that, or the Rainboom.
It's always changing.
Exactly,
that's for sure.
It develops over time. So with age, almost, I guess.
Oh dear.
But I won't get into that too much, because I know that either we might be aging ourselves here, or we might be aging you listening. So I don't really think we should press too much in that particular aspect, because I think it just comes from experience rather than age, as you mentioned, Meg.
All right. So should we lead into the next set of questions?
Sure.
Well, we've kind of established that everyone's got their own standards for quality, but I was kind of curious as to how these standards are set, or who decides like what standard is a high quality standard. I know it's kind of up to the individual, but there's like other ways you could look at it, like in terms of content on, or it could be any content from anywhere, but does more popular content equal more quality?
Now, that is interesting, because
I've seen things that are like that, in my opinion, are not good quality, but they're popular. So
yeah, I've seen plenty.
I don't know.
Or at least maybe it's just because my expectations are higher for what would be perceived as popular.
And everyone has their own expectations. That's the thing. So there could be a huge group of people that think this is high quality over here that I don't think is high quality.
Yeah.
So it's a struggle, because you always want to be producing high quality stuff, but you almost assume that if nobody is watching your stuff, that your stuff must be bad quality, which isn't always true.
Oh, yeah.
It's just maybe you just haven't drawn the right audience yet.
Yeah, perhaps. Or it is just an expectation gap. Maybe, whoever happens to be looking at your content at this certain time might have expectations or standards of quality at a completely different level compared to yours. And in the completely different sense, it might be one where either they're not wowed, or it's just, one of indifference. Let's say, oh, hey, it's a build. It's like, scrolling through Instagram or some other social media where people have build posts, or even content generally, like YouTube recommendations or things like that. People might just scroll and look for things. Some might even be intending to try to find stuff of certain qualities. They might just be looking to try to entertain themselves by scrolling and looking through all sorts of different posts. So sometimes it might not, it could even just be that something might just so happen to be popular as well. People
mindlessly scrolling is what you're saying, and liking everything as they go.
Perhaps, and then it might just so happen that some objectively or subjectively, maybe even subpar quality build becomes popular, whereas the one that, probably somebody might look and say, this, there's no way this is Minecraft, and then think it's a hoax, just kind of scroll away, and little do they realize everything they're missing on because of all the work that's gone into that sort of thing.
I guess that is something. You kind of have to understand the work to appreciate quality too.
Oh yes, or at least have it. Have the intention to want to understand. I think as well, because I know that it almost even sometimes comes down to, and I'm going to take a real world example, like any sort of customer service, quality customer service is probably also a very, very vaguely defined area. Everybody probably has their expectations of customer service. But, generally you're looking for friendly people who relate to you very well, or they're doing something, whatever the case is there. But it's just extremely, where was I getting with this? You probably won't have a popular server. You could probably have a popular server, potentially. I haven't quite witnessed that myself, but I don't know. I was taking that somewhere, but for some reason I think the thought of food when I thought of customer service, because I was thinking of restaurants and stuff, that all of a sudden just came into mind, and now I'm thinking about food, but that has nothing to do with quality unless it's quality food. But we're not going to get into that.
Quality food. Yep.
Yeah. What defines quality food? No, it's. I think that might be a whole different area. Oh yes. Oh yes. Oh yes.
Obviously, I would not someone who does not have any experience cooking a meal expecting me to eat it.
If you're listening and you're looking for food experience, I think you've come to the wrong place. At least for me, I know I cannot help you either, because I rely very heavily on other, pre-cooked meals or other things of the sort. But I mean, hey, their quality to me at least presumably is okay. They're good to me. and they work just enough fine for me, so I can go back to sitting down to my quality Minecraft builds and attempting to finish those off. No, but going back
I did want to go back to the popularity thing real quick.
Yeah, sure.
Because it's kind of confusing, because you want to produce quality content, but you also want it to be popular.
Mm-hmm.
But do those two always have to coincide? It's kind of sad, because you see a lot of very creative people who don't get a lot of attention that you might think they deserve, because, I don't know, who knows? The algorithm just doesn't like their content, or just not enough people clicked on it for them to promote it. But that doesn't make it any less quality. Uh-huh. So is it good for that kind of person to try to do what the algorithm wants to see just to try to get more clicks? Or is it better to just stick to like a higher standard of quality and stick to your own standard of quality and disregard the algorithm altogether?
I guess it's a bit of give and take. I know we probably could go on and on about the algorithm, because there's probably so much that could be discussed with that. But what I think is, I think it really just comes down to the intention of the creator. Because, like you and I figure, we're not looking to be the next big YouTuber or Twitch streamer or something like that. So we intentionally or unintentionally won't really, try to, when I say this, it's not like we're not putting effort into it. It's rather we're just not intentionally trying to be seen, in the sense of trying to like getting popularity and that sort of thing, right? Because if they just want to build just because to have fun and maybe just to share it, not really looking to explode into popularity and that sort of thing, then they might just, like what I do with my very small Instagram. For instance, if Meg, you probably know what I'm talking about. My Rainboom page is, it's only a couple years old, but at the same time, I very seldom post on it, because I'm not much of a social media fellow myself, aside from promotional matters. But secondly, I've just been saying, I just want a place where I can look back and scroll through and see how I've developed over the years. And, from there, it's just to see if somebody happens to like it, then, hey, there we go. Not too bad. If I end up blowing up somehow and some suddenly gaining a following, cool. It wouldn't really make much of a difference to me. I appreciate it, yes, but it's not my intention to grow as a content creator, let's say on Instagram, for instance, like that example. But then people
I'm kind of the same way.
So then it's like, like you probably know what I mean when I say that you're not really having these intentions of trying to say, oh, I'm going to become a Twitch affiliate, or I want to become somebody who gets paid on YouTube, or, have those aspirations.
But at the same time, though, like, you do feel the pressure of wanting, over time, it just kind of naturally comes, even if your intentions are that originally, as you just said. Even if your intentions are like that, you do feel the pressure of trying to get more people to see your work, because and I guess this can lead up into the effort and time that it takes you to do it, because sometimes you feel like I put all of this time into this, so that automatically makes you feel like, oh, this must be like high quality because I've spent all this time on it, and then you kind of feel disappointed when it doesn't perform as well as you hoped.
That's true. Yeah, it does kind of come. It's a thought that comes from the back of your mind, but it sometimes just leaps forward. It's like, I put all this effort. I think it's good. Now I want to see that it does very well. And I guess that maybe there sometimes does. Maybe if you're listening, do you ever get that nagging feeling that's like, I'm so curious to see how people react to this. I think especially as somebody who starts early, like I know in my case, from one of my first few days, I had this, when I look back, I'm gonna call it an objectively subpar build or something. And so when I go to post it or put it somewhere on a forum or a board or something, I'll keep checking back every few seconds just to see if people have reacted to it, knowing that it's a place that has high traffic.
I used to be very bad at that.
Right.
I used to be very bad at constantly checking something I posted.
Right.
I think I still check it frequently, but not nearly as much as I used to. I think I've gotten better about that. But over time, you just kind of learn to appreciate the work for, like, kind of appreciate it yourself versus not caring as much what other people think of it. But
I guess it just takes
at this
time.
point, I just kind of appreciate my own quality work. And if others appreciate too, that's just extra. That's just a bonus.
Exactly, yeah. And like how I kind of tied it back to stuff I do wherever for the very few amounts of content that I've been posting now. I mean, I might do more later on, but at the same time, it's right now it's extremely casual to the point where I'm not particularly worried if, well, it would be nice to, as we've established, that it would be nice that it did well. But, even if it's just out there, it's out there to me. And I say, here, I've shared it,
I would much rather spend a lot of time on something than posting, I guess, quality over quantity. I would much rather spend a lot of time on something that I think is high quality. Because then I would feel much more satisfaction out of it in the end, personally.
I guess it also just comes to be also, maybe we shouldn't also be too dejected if something doesn't do as well as we think it did. Because I know that for me, like as I started doing less of that, I'm going to check this every few seconds, every few minutes to see what the reaction is, I'd probably just post it. I'll say, all right, it's a done deal, and then wait, maybe if a notification happens to come around, then I'll say, oh, okay, cool, it's been interacted with and people have some kind of feedback. And I guess there is an element of maybe we just wouldn't need to be caught up in that sort of not really redemption. There's a word I'm thinking of, not even validation, but just that feeling of having accomplished something good. And other people have seen it and agree with you on that. So maybe
I think you touched on it kind of, but it is better to just compare your current work to your past work and just appreciate the fact that you're getting better in that respect versus relying so much on other people's feedback,
or even simply just not being too hard on yourself too. I know I am. Well, people say you're your worst critic, but and
you should be. That's another thing. You should be your own worst critic.
Yes, that's true. But don't hold yourself too hard to that specifically, in the sense of to the point where you're going to be trying to rip your hair out, thinking why can't I produce a good quality build according to your own standard, but. It could already be something good. Maybe you're just overthinking it, possibly, and so it just becomes, you end up losing time and energy and all of that. Just thinking, being your own worst critic, or your own critic in the wrong way. I think maybe I'll put it that way, because there are good ways to be your own critic, and I'm sure that there are not so healthy ways to be your own critic. And I think that thinking too much about how well something might do. Excessively, there is a certain level. There is an importance in terms of how much you probably should look at something to say, is this the sort of content I should post, or whatever the case is. But again, I guess there's a balance to it, and it probably all just comes down to finding that. Would
you say there's also a balance in quality and quantity? Like,
there could be.
Do you think, because this is something that I was wondering, like, I always feel like I have to spend certain amount of time on something for it to be of high quality, which is not the most healthy mindset, but that's just how I feel. But would it be just as bad to spend little effort on something, or I guess less effort on something, just to get content out there? Is that a bad thing necessarily, or do you think we should just try to reach our highest standard right away?
I would say it ultimately depends on what your target is. Like, I think if you're after the quality content, then definitely go for the quality. And if you're not concerned about what the reception is, but if you're saying, if you're somebody who kind of is more of I'd like to create content that would be interesting or entertaining to my fans or to the people who like my content, then sometimes there might be something that we look at, and I think we sometimes discuss this, Megan, in our conversations, but sometimes we put something out there that's like we think is subpar or of not as high quality, yet it sometimes tends to be the better performing content because people seem to like that specifically. So we haven't even hopped on or intentionally hopped onto an algorithm or a trend, yet we've already got content that we thought was not going to do very well, but somehow does very well also. So
I think that's happened on my channel too.
I think it really depends on what your intentions are. And it comes back again to the whole idea of what we were just talking about too. So I think intention is a very big part into it. But sometimes we may not even intend on appealing to the masses, yet we sometimes do.
Yeah, I've done that accidentally, and honestly, it can be discouraging, but I don't know why I complain because it is my own content either way.
Yeah,
like, I can spend 230 hours on a carousel. It hardly gets nearly as much attention as I would hope, but then I spend a couple hours on some simple tutorial and it gets, 100,000 views. I'm like, okay, well, and I don't know why I would feel so dejected about that. Maybe it's just because I feel like the one that has more effort put into it should ultimately get more attention, but they're both my work. I don't know why I complain or why I think that one deserves more than the other.
Or it could just be that bias because you spent that much more time, or you think like this is a build I want to showcase, and one that has taken me all this time and energy that I would like to see that it might scale up better in terms of general reception. It could just
it can be discouraging, bias, but I think it is also more rewarding for me at least to just do whatever I think is, I guess, put as much time as I'm willing to into something, because in the end, I feel more satisfied about it, even if it doesn't perform as well as I hoped.
Do you ever get that? Do you ever get that feeling when you think, or at least you feel that, okay, I'm done this build, and then step back, and then you either take screenshots or just look at it? Is that the moment to you when it's sort of like, yeah, this is my big accomplishment, I've done this, and then is that where you feel that satisfaction, or is it at a different stage?
I kind of have it. I actually feel it several times. I definitely feel it right after the build, and sometimes I do that where I just stare at the build for a long time when it's finished, like, ooh, look at this thing I created. But then it's also a sense of satisfaction when once everything is posted, once the video is finished, because you usually do have a video accompanying every build. Mm-hmm. Once all of that is finished, then I really do feel a sense of accomplishment because I actually made something out of it.
I see.
Even if it doesn't perform well, it's the most satisfying feeling to know that you put time into something and you actually finished it and saw it through.
And to your standard, it is of high quality.
And to my standard, yes.
Basically, you perceive it's like, I finished something I think is of good quality. And it's like, now I can say, hey, look, I built this, or I managed to pull this off, or do whatever the case is, right? I know in my case, it would come in the form of, if I found an area of my city that I really wanted to just take pictures of, like if I, whether accidentally or intentionally, turn shaders on, I'll probably go around an entire screenshot spree. And that's where I'll start stepping back and saying, hey, look at all this stuff that I've been able to put together. And just let the aesthetic of the screenshot just, distract me practically for the most part. Mm-hmm. So I guess
it's very easy to distract yourself with your own quality builds.
That's fair. Well, I know. And on an unrelated note, it is easy for anyone to distract me anyways. So that's kind of just a general thought. Meg, you can testify to this very easily. If you're listening, and if you ever join any of my streams, if I ever do stuff, you're going to know exactly what I'm talking about. But that's a whole different topic. I think some other aspect. It could be some other aspect of quality. But no, going back to the idea of popularity, I guess that it really just does depend on the person, on the individual's intentions, mm-hmm. and then how it relates to the public, and if there is an expectation gap between what the public is expecting and what you're expecting your build to perform as, or how it's going to perform.
If you're more interested, I guess, in the general public's opinion, you might have to sacrifice a bit of quality. It depends on the context of it. Mm-hmm. But from my standard of quality does not perform well. So that is something I've come to find out.
I see. I'm probably gonna have to find out myself. I don't know. But still, I guess we'll just have to see. But then again, trends change, or popularity changes. So what was quote unquote popular, last year,
Or you could have one viral video and then the rest of them are flops. You know, it's impossible to.
Yeah, the public changes, so the gap fluctuates like a roller coaster, practically, I guess. So one day you might be right on par, on the same wavelength as your viewers or followers or fans or the general public at large. The next day you're kind of way over, like they're up in a valley, they're down in a valley, you're up on the mountains somewhere, or something like that.
So the bottom line is just just make stuff to the quality of your own standards and don't worry so much about what other people think.
And, all of a sudden, going back to that industrial quality I was talking about when I mentioned the dimensions, they actually define, one of the first things we were told as a definition of quality was continuous improvement. If quality isn't simply just in an actual product or service, it's in the process of improving that product or service. So that also is an aspect of quality. So, and it ties in perfectly to this, because quality to an individual person could simply just be, I build something now, I'm going to keep working on it for the next months or years, and then look back and you'll see just how far you've come and how much you've developed and grown.
And I think that's much more rewarding.
Creator. Yeah, very, very rewarding.
Yes. So in the context of the quality over quantity, quality is much more rewarding.
Oh yes. Like continuous improvement for me, and you can probably relate to this very easily, Meg, with how your channel has developed. But I know for me with radio, when I first started a few years ago, I thought this is, I think, the best broadcast I have ever done. It's topped everything I've done in high school. Everything
That's like
I've
every single new
do.
thing is always the best one you've ever
Precisely.
done.
and now I can't be bothered to look back at them, because I can't help but cringe at how hard I was trying, how excessively hard I was trying to sound good on the air. And so it's only been recently when I've sort of found more of a comfortable sound, and one that has been comfortable to me to use, that doesn't sound phony, but at the same time, I still do what I have to do. So,
and who knows? Maybe we'll look back on this podcast episode and think the exact same thing. Like, wow, we were so cringe back then.
Yeah, maybe we might hit like episode 40 or 50, and then we'll say, let's do an anniversary special where we go and look back at some of the first few episodes and see how our perception,
how much our quality has improved.
There you go. But I mean, you probably do the same thing with your channel, Meg, too, right? I mean, but anybody probably could, like with any kind of creative medium, but I'm sure that you've seen the progression of your content over the years.
And what's funny to me is that even when I first started YouTube, people would comment on my videos that it was, oh wow, this is like such good quality, or maybe not those exact words, but that's what they're saying. Like, wow, like this is really good quality video. But now I look back on those videos, I'm like, I do so much better now. Those are not good quality.
Do people comment on old videos still to this day, though? And they'll say, this is the best thing I've ever seen.
Sometimes they do comment on old videos saying, wow, this build is amazing. And I look at it and I'm like, no, it's not.
There's a video I'd like to name now, but I won't. And I think you know what I'm talking about, Meg. There's one that you said, the way this, I think it was the face or some aspect, it was an organic build. And you said, I cannot look at this part of the body because it was so terribly done, but I'll bet you still get comments from it saying this is a good video. So, maybe people, whoever was there before, they're
it could just be they weren't exposed to the newer stuff,
perhaps, or their standard of quality grew with yours, so it kind of all collectively grew up into the same level of expectation, and they stuck around ever since, and hence that. Then maybe
everyone has to start from the bottom up. So your standard of quality is probably always going to start really low.
Or from somewhere. It could be, it could be from whatever elevation it is. And then it's just, but it always is on the up and up, that continuous improvement aspect.
Yes.
So it goes through that, basically. Did you have any other things talking on the perspectives of quality or different approaches to it?
I don't think so. I think we've covered most everything.
Because I'm pretty much also practically through with mine. So, I mean, I guess aside from a recap of more or less what we have collected to be out of this whole subjective big gray cloud that is quality.
I think you summed it up well enough when you said it's always like improvement. It's always about improving yourself.
That's fair.
It's always improving. It's always changing.
And then also,
and it's always subjective.
And just don't hold yourself too hardly to your own standard, because if you'll never be, if you'll think you'll never be able
other
to meet
people's
your
standards,
or especially to other people's standards, because their standards are probably very different from your standards, and so it might be unrealistic potentially. It could be possible, but then it also could be just unrealistic, or worse, is unhealthy. And you might start saying, "Oh, I'll never become as good as this."
Because you might be holding yourself back and not realizing it.
That's true. Just not unlocking your creativity or potential in the right areas. So that kind of could tie into quality also. And that probably sums it up.
Wraps it up.
I think so.
I don't have anything else to say.
Pretty much so.
We did want to mention a little bit about getting possible feedback for these podcasts. If you did have something you want to say.
Oh, absolutely. I think that basically, whether it's feedback such as, if you have your own thoughts, because we always would love to hear your 2 cents on this, because that this is something, and a lot of the topics I think we'll talk about can vary very well between content creators. There is no sort of binary yes or no, or just an X number of possible viewpoints on them. So we'd love to hear from you for that, or maybe if it's to say how we're doing. You say that if the podcast is going well, if we missed something, if we misrepresented something, if there's something like,
if you would like us to talk about something specifically, we're open to suggestions too.
That as well. Or if you could come up with whatever that expression was we were still thinking of from the last episode, we'd love to hear from you. I still haven't thought about it. I have not forgotten it. It keeps bugging me sometimes when I wake up in the morning and I'll think.
I'm pretty sure at this point I was just imagining it.
But the thing is, if I feel that it's a word, I'm sure it's a word or an expression somewhere. Yeah, I mean, you're not. Or
maybe I'm just really good at tricking us into thinking it exists. Maybe
this is a big distraction. That's very possible.
I am very good at distractions.
Yes, and you're succeeding at it now. So that could be very possible. But no, going back to that, I think if you would like to drop us a line somehow, I think because we have these posted, by the way, if you haven't been aware. And I mean, I guess if you're viewing this from somewhere, you probably know it's at least on YouTube or on the podcasting, at least on maybe Spotify or Apple Podcasts or any of those sorts of podcast streaming platforms. But you can always drop us a line on the YouTube version of this podcast. I think
YouTube is the main place where you can give us feedback, because we don't really have any other way.
Yeah, or unless you just want to DM us somehow, because we have our socials linked up over there as well. If there's something,
if you know where we are in Discord,
if there's something that you want to tell Meg that you don't want to tell me, or vice versa, that's always a possibility too. They'll say, Meg, you should probably fire Rainboom because he rambles on too much, or something like that. Whatever the case is. You know what? Hey, I'm open to constructive criticism, but I emphasize constructive criticism, because there is a difference between a troll,
not just plain criticism,
precisely, and a troll, which you're probably going to find yourself as the subject of another whole podcast in the future if you try to troll us. Who knows? We never know. But anyways, that's where you can catch us. It's on YouTube, on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, possibly other platforms, because I know that the reach is pretty much out there. Who knows where this might end up being? But that's where it is. And so until the next episode, that's going to be where you'll find us pretty much.
Yeah, we'll see you next time.